The slave who fed a poor homeless boy, unaware he was the billionaire's heir. Please do well to like and subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss inspirational stories that keep hope alive. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, drumming against the tin roof of the old kitchen where Amara worked. The flickering lamp above the counter cast long, trembling shadows across the walls. She was exhausted, her hands raw from scrubbing pots all day, her body sore from the insults and beatings that came with being a slave in Madame Velma's estate. Velma was the kind of woman who ruled her home like a tyrant. She had inherited her husband's wealth after his mysterious death and treated her servants like disposable objects. Amara was the lowest of them all, the orphaned girl bought from poverty, with no family, no hope, and no freedom. As the clock neared midnight, Amara packed up the leftovers, half a loaf of bread, a few cold, potatoes and scraps of meat that the dogs wouldn't eat. Her heart ached knowing this food would soon rot in the waste bin while so many starved outside the mansion's iron gates. Then, through the sound of the storm, she heard it. A faint whimper. A child's cry. She froze, holding the basket tightly. Slowly she pushed open the back door. The wind slapped her face, cold and sharp. There, just beyond the fence, stood a shivering boy, soaked to the bone, his clothes torn and his feet bare. "Please," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I haven't eaten in 2 days." Amara's heart clenched. She looked around nervously. If Madame Velma caught her giving away food, it could mean lashes. But she couldn't turn away. The boy's eyes, green and desperate, reminded her of herself. She knelt down, passing him the small basket through the gap in the gate. "Here, eat slowly," she said softly. "Don't choke." The boy's hands shook as he grabbed the bread. "Thank you, miss. You're an angel." Amara smiled sadly. "Angels don't live here, child. Just people trying to survive." As he ate, lightning flashed, illuminating his small, fragile frame. He couldn't have been older than 12, yet there was something strangely noble in the way he spoke, like he came from a world far higher than hers. "What's your name?" she asked. He swallowed hard before answering. "Ethan." From that night on, Ethan came to the gate every evening. Sometimes Amara brought him bread, other times soup or bits of roasted yam. She'd hide it in her apron, sneaking out when the guards were asleep. Each meeting brought quiet laughter and whispered conversations under the moonlight. Ethan told her stories, of dreams, of faraway cities, of kindness and courage. He never said where he came from, and Amara never asked. She only knew he was alone. One night, he said something that made her pause. "My father used to say, a person's true wealth isn't in gold, it's in how many hearts they touch." She chuckled. "Sounds like a rich man's saying." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think it's true." There was a confidence in his tone, a quiet dignity that didn't fit his ragged clothes. Amara wondered who he really was, but something told her to let the mystery be. It was enough that she wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in years, someone saw her, not as a servant, but as a person. Inside the mansion, Madame Velma ruled with cruelty, sharpened by jealousy. She was beautiful, but in the way of cold marble, hard and lifeless. Her eyes burned with greed. She believed kindness was weakness, and mercy was for fools. Rumors had long swirled that Velma had a hand in her husband's death. No one dared to question her. She owned the police, the land, and the lives of everyone beneath her roof. One afternoon, Amara dropped a glass of wine while serving at dinner. It shattered on the tiled floor. The room went silent. Velma's face darkened. "You useless creature," she hissed, slapping Amara hard across the cheek. "That was imported from France." "I'm sorry, madam," Amara whispered, trembling. Velma sneered. "Sorry doesn't clean up broken glass. Use your hands." Amara fell to her knees, picking up the shards as blood began to bead from her fingers. The guests laughed, raising their glasses. It was humiliation in its purest form. That night, when Ethan came to the gate, he noticed her hands wrapped in torn cloth. "What happened?" he asked. Amara smiled weakly. "Nothing that hasn't happened before." His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be treated that way. I'm just a slave, Ethan." He shook his head. "No, you're the kindest person I've ever met. One day you'll be free." She chuckled softly. "Freedom is for people like you." He looked up at the stars. "You'll see. The world has a strange way of repaying kindness." Weeks passed. One stormy night, as Amara slipped into the kitchen to fetch leftovers, one of the guards spotted her. "Hey, what are you doing?" he barked. She froze. The guard yanked the basket from her hands, uncovering the food. "Stealing again?" For who this time? He dragged her by the arm to Madame Velma's chamber. Velma, already irritated from drink, stood at the window when they entered. "She was sneaking food out again, ma'am," the guard said. Velma turned slowly, her red lipstick gleaming under the candlelight. "So, my little charity rat has been feeding the vermin outside." Amara fell to her knees. "Please, madam, it's just a hungry child." Velma slapped her. "Silence!" Her voice rose like thunder. "You steal from me to feed beggars while I feed you? I should have sold you years ago." She ordered the guards to tie Amara to the whipping post behind the stables. The rain poured as the first lash cut across her back. She bit her lip, refusing to scream. She wouldn't give Velma the pleasure. Unseen by all, Ethan watched from the trees, his small frame trembling with rage and helplessness. His fists clenched as tears mixed with the rain. When it was over, Amara collapsed, barely conscious. Velma threw a final insult over her shoulder. "Maybe next time you'll learn. Compassion is for the rich, not slaves." Ethan stepped out after everyone left. He covered Amara with his old blanket and whispered, "I swear, one day I'll make them beg for your forgiveness." Amara smiled weakly, her eyes half closed. "Don't promise what you can't keep, child." But Ethan's face was fierce. "I keep my promises." By morning, Ethan was gone. Amara waited by the gate every evening, her eyes scanning the horizon. But he never returned. The loneliness was heavier than the chains on her wrists. Months turned into years. Velma's cruelty worsened. The other servants whispered that Amara had gone mad, talking to shadows at night. Yet she held on to a faint memory of green eyes and a boy's gentle voice promising justice. It became her only reason to keep breathing. 10 years passed. The estate had grown older, but Madame Velma remained as ruthless as ever. She now entertained business elites and politicians, bragging about her influence. She wore diamonds but had no joy. One afternoon, the mansion buzzed with excitement. Word spread that an important guest was visiting, Elijah Cole's son, the billionaire who built the estate decades ago. Velma almost fainted from excitement. Elijah Cole's heir? Coming here? Why wasn't I informed sooner? Her advisor smiled nervously. "He requested privacy, ma'am. Said he wanted to see the place where his father's legacy began." "Perfect," Velma said, rushing to the mirror to fix her hair. "Perhaps a partnership awaits." Hours later, luxury cars rolled into the driveway. Reporters, bodyguards, and assistants filled the grounds. The front door opened, and a tall, confident man stepped out. Ethan, now in his 20s, dressed in a sharp suit, his aura commanding. Velma gasped, "Mr. Cole!" "What an honor." Ethan's voice was calm, deep, and steady. "Thank you, Madame Velma. I wanted to see my late father's property before deciding what to do with it." She smiled greedily. "Oh, you'll find no better caretaker than me. I've managed this estate since—" Ethan's gaze moved past her, to the servants lined up in the courtyard. His eyes locked on one woman kneeling near the fountain, Amara. Her clothes were faded, her back slightly hunched from years of labor. But he recognized her instantly. Amara raised her head slowly, disbelief flooding her face. The world seemed to freeze around them. "Ethan," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Velma frowned. "You know him?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Yes. She's the reason I'm alive." Velma's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" Ethan turned to the crowd. "Years ago, when I ran from home after my father's death, I was lost, starving, and alone. This woman, your servant, fed me every night, risked her life to show me kindness." He faced Velma directly. "While she was being beaten under your roof, she was saving the heir to the fortune you now flaunt." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Velma's face turned pale. "That's impossible." Ethan's assistant stepped forward, holding a file. "We've verified everything. Madam Velma's late husband was indeed Elijah Cole's property manager. After his death, she forged documents to claim ownership of the estate." Ethan's tone hardened. "Which makes this place and everything in it mine." Velma's knees weakened. "Mr. Cole, please, I didn't know." "You didn't care to know." Ethan cut her off coldly. "You only knew greed." He turned to Amara. "You once said freedom was for people like me. Today, I say, it's for people like you." Tears streamed down her face. I don't understand." Ethan smiled gently. "You will." He handed her a folded document. Inside was her manumission, her freedom papers, signed and sealed. Velma tried to protest, but Ethan raised his hand. "You will face charges for fraud, abuse, and theft of estate property. Guards, take her away!" She screamed as officers stepped forward, dragging her out while reporters captured every moment. Her empire of cruelty crumbled before her eyes. Amara stood trembling, watching the scene unfold. It felt unreal, like a dream she'd never dared to dream. Ethan turned to her. "I couldn't protect you then, but I can now. You gave when you had nothing. You shared your bread with a stranger, and that act changed my life." Amara's voice shook. "I only did what any heart should do." He smiled. "Then this world needs more hearts like yours." He led her inside the mansion, the same halls that had once echoed with her pain. But now every step she took was free. Weeks passed. Madame Velma's arrest became national news, and Ethan's decision to transform the estate into a charity foundation made headlines around the country. He named it the Amara Hope Foundation, a place dedicated to feeding and housing orphans, widows, and the poor. At the grand opening, cameras flashed as Ethan stood on stage beside her. "She once told me that angels don't live here," he said to the crowd. But she was wrong. Sometimes angels wear rags and walk among us, disguised as slaves. The audience rose to their feet, applauding as tears filled Amara's eyes. After the ceremony, Ethan turned to her. "Do you remember what I said that night in the rain?" She smiled faintly. "That the world has a strange way of repaying kindness." He nodded. It just did. Years later, Amara became known as Mother Amara, the woman who turned pain into compassion. Under her leadership, the foundation fed thousands every month, built schools, and offered jobs to the poor. Ethan often visited, but he never treated her as a servant. He introduced her in every public event as the woman who taught me humanity. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the estate, Amara stood at the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Children laughed below, running with full bellies and bright eyes. The wind carried their laughter into the horizon. Ethan joined her quietly. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Feeding a stranger that night?" She smiled warmly. "Never. You see, kindness is never wasted. It's just an investment in tomorrow." He looked at her with deep respect. "You taught me that true power isn't in wealth. It's in love." She placed her hand on his arm. "And you proved that the good you give always finds its way home." The story of Amara and Ethan became legend in the city. a tale told in schools and churches about mercy, humility, and divine justice. Madame Velma spent the rest of her days in prison, a forgotten name. The estate that once reeked of oppression now overflowed with life and hope. And in the heart of it all stood a woman who had nothing, but gave everything. Kindness is a seed, the final narration says, and though it may fall in the mud, it will bloom one day in the garden of destiny.